If I was to make up a list of animals that are unsuited to life in a city or a town, the dog would be near or at the top of my list. You might think that there are some animals that are so obviously unsuited to urban life that they would knock dogs way down the list. Elephants, camels, lions, tigers, giraffes, chimpanzees are all examples of animals that we don't want in our towns and cities because they are too large or too unruly or too dangerous. When we bring them into cities, we contain them and separate them in zoos. We create barriers between them and us. We try to give them adequate living space and to mimic conditions in the wild. They are here in small numbers. The popularity of aquaria as tourist attractions in many cities allows us to see sharks and rays within a metropolitan area. Forget the wetsuit, just walk through a glass tunnel and be centimeters away from danger. There are a number of differences between dogs and these other animals. Dogs are among us. They are in people's homes. They are in cafes. They are in bars. They are in stores. They are running around our streets. They are here in very large numbers. They are here, but they shouldn't be. They are unsuited to life in towns and cities. Why do I say this? Firstly, they are unsuitable for the same reason that the other animals listed above are unsuitable. They are dangerous. The obvious counter to this is that small dogs such as Chihuahuas or Jack Russell Terriers are too small to represent any kind of danger. That may appear to be so, but pit bull advocates and anti-breed specific legislation campaigners take great pains to persuade us that this is not the case. They claim that Chihuahuas are much more dangerous than pit bulls. Often in the same argument, they try to tell us that there is no such thing as a pit bull, so that is not a reliable source. Chihuahuas and Jack Russell Terriers are not too small to represent a danger. Small dogs are a danger to small people, such as babies and toddlers, and are an irritant to adults. They are also, along with all dogs, a vector for rabies and many other diseases. There are a number of things in our lives that are dangerous, but our governments will usually try to protect us through legislation. Cars are dangerous, but there is a lot of protective legislation related to cars, from their manufacture to their ownership and transfer, to their continued maintenance, and to the licensing of drivers. In the UK, for example, from the third year of registration, every vehicle has to undergo a very detailed annual mandatory government inspection to be considered roadworthy. If the car doesn't pass, it's off the road. Other countries have their own regulations to protect their citizens from the danger that road vehicles pose. I use the example of cars because dog worshippers like to tell us that cars kill more people than dogs do, so maybe we should ban cars. Dogs do kill and disable people, but there are few regulations to protect us from them. The few regulations there are tend to be very loosely policed, whereas car-based legislation is rigorously enforced. Attempts to introduce legislation to protect us against dogs are met with lobbying, organized protest, misinformation, and aggressive lying. The other reasons that dogs are unsuitable animals for urban environments are noise. It has been said that the two biggest problems of city life are barking and parking. Dog noise carries far and is stressful. Some people suffer from hyperacusis, which is an increased sensitivity to certain frequencies and volume ranges of sound. Other people suffer from a condition called misophonia, in which negative emotions, thoughts, and physical reactions are triggered by specific sounds. Misophonia has nothing to do with the volume of sound. Barking prevents sleep and causes stress. Dog noise is a nuisance throughout the world. Then there's the issue of exercise. Dog owners love to tell us that dogs need exercise. They like to talk about the unrestrained and uninhibited joy of a dog running about. Space is at a premium in most urban areas, so where are the dogs to get exercise? Zoonotic diseases. I have spoken before about the diseases that can be spread from dog to human. The close proximity of dogs to humans in cities makes this transmission more likely, and the habits of some dog owners who sleep with their dogs increases their individual chance of catching an infection or infestation from the dog, and then in turn passing it on to other humans. Dog welfare. The keeping of an animal as an emotional crutch is not for the best interests of the animal. It is selfish. Owning an animal and treating it as if it is a human is selfish. Taking an animal away from members of its own species and imprisoning it in a small habitat designed by humans for humans is selfish. At least with zoo animals, there are some attempts to create a stimulating space or to recreate a natural environment. The problem, of course, is that the dog has no natural environment to recreate, as it occupies no ecological niche. Having said all of that, we must come to the conclusion that anyone contemplating the idea of buying a dog must already know what city or town life is like. They must already know the customs, the habits, the culture, and the limitations of urban life. But they don't appear to. It's as if their memory of city life has been wiped clean. They make the decision to buy a dog, and suddenly they don't know what city life is like. The science fiction writer Philip K. Dick wrote a lot of stories about memory and self-awareness. There are stories about falsely implanted memories. For example, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep?, which was made into the film Blade Runner. Or We Can Remember It for You Wholesale, made into the film Total Recall. There are stories of memories wiped clean, such as Paycheck, made into a film of the same name. When an urban dweller decides to buy a dog, it's as if they step into a Philip K. Dick universe, in which their memory has been tinkered with. Dog barking annoys people? I never knew that. Free space is limited in a city? That's news to me. Cyclists want to use cycle paths? You're joking. People celebrate with fireworks? That's ridiculous and needs to stop. It will upset the dogs. And so it goes. When someone decides to buy a dog, they must have to ignore all of their previous knowledge and experience about both cities and dogs. Otherwise, they wouldn't buy it. The prospective buyer makes a selfish personal decision to buy a dog. They have no thought for anyone but themselves. When they buy it, they think of their own needs. When they buy it, they think of the imagined adoration that their new purchase will provide. They take their new purchase home, and a sort of reality slightly intrudes. Their dog is their property, and they have to provide for it. That is something they haven't thought through properly. They realize that they do not have the necessary assets to care properly for the needs of the living property that they have just purchased. They may live in a small apartment in a large apartment block, separated from their neighbors with inadequate soundproofing, with no yard or garden, with no plans for dealing with the biological waste that the animal must inevitably and regularly produce. The solution is simple. Let society take the strain. I go back to the title of this video. What do they expect from us? They expect us to hand over our leisure spaces for their dogs' use at no cost to them. They expect us to give up humans-only spaces and tolerate dogs everywhere that humans go. They expect us to tolerate the smell, staring, begging, and unpleasant behavior of dogs when we are eating and drinking. They expect us to share the tax burden of cleaning up after their dog and disposing of the waste. They expect us to share all of the extra costs to society that dog ownership brings, such as health costs, policing costs, insurance costs. They expect us to tolerate the intrusion of their dog into our personal space without complaint. They expect us and our children to behave in certain ways to minimize the danger that their dogs bring to us. They expect us to accept their stupid explanations for their dog's aggression. For example, he's being friendly, he's playing, he's saying hello, he's just protecting his territory. They expect us to adjust long-held customs and practices, such as fireworks displays or Easter egg hunts, to suit their dogs. They expect us to allow their dogs to take precedence over our children in every situation. They expect us to tolerate the barking, biting, and mauling without complaint. When a dog kills someone, they expect us to accept the crowdfunding, the pleas for mercy for the dog, and the calls to rehome the dog. They expect us to listen to victim-blaming explanations for the dog's behavior. They expect everything and take everything. There is one more thing I want them to take. I want them to take their dogs and make the future dog-free.